Hello and welcome to the Florida Men Gaming. My name is Furion and today we will be playing Magic the Gathering Arena. This season we are looking to work our way from Bronze to Mythic and have some fun along the way. But before we get started, I would like to ask you to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Also, please feel free to leave a comment as we progress along this journey. We are happy to have you with us and would love your feedback. If you have deck suggestions, gameplay tips, or just thoughts that you want to share in general, we are open and would love to interact with you. For this video today, we're going to be playing a mono-white Exile tribal deck that I've called Say Please. This deck is based around ruining people's day on the arena. So this takes some pieces from some earlier deck models from previous seasons, especially when the Stonebinder's Familiar saw a lot of popularity following, I believe it was a Worlds, or at least a major tournament, and CGB then proceeded to shed some major light on the dangers of that particular card. We're going with 4 copies of the Stonebinder's Familiar, which is a 1/1 Spirit Dog for 1. Whenever 1 or more cards are put into exile during your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on the Stonebinder's Familiar. That effect does only take place 1 time per turn, so this little puppy can start to get pretty big pretty quick depending on what we run into. We are also running 3 copies of Thalia, the Garden of Thraben. This card is our Interrupt. It is designed to help us break past the spellcasting decks, especially decks in the Azorius and Izzet colors, as while this creature is on the board, non-creature spells cost 1 more mana to cast. So it really is a good defensive line against a lot of what we could potentially be running into. To help with our exile and to potentially disrupt cards and decks that play from the graveyard, we've put in 2 copies of the Sungold Sentinel. Whenever the Sungold Sentinel enters the battlefield or attacks, exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard. This will allow us to take away cards that have recursion effects, cards that have flashback, or eliminate spell pools from Lier, Disciple of the Drowns. To help build up the exile effect and take away the opponent's ability to really do anything, we have 4 copies of the Brutal Cathar, a 2/2 for 3 human soldier werewolf. When this creature enters the battlefield or transforms into Brutal Cathar, exile target creature an opponent controls until this creature leaves the battlefield. What's exciting about this card is if it goes from daybound to nightbound, it becomes a 3/3 with first strike, and also has a ward that if it gets targeted by a spell, the opponent must pay 3 life in order for that spell to resolve. If it goes back to daybound, the Brutal Cathar will then re-trigger its exile ability and target another opponent's creature or token. So this 1 card could sit on an entire pile of the opponent's field all by itself. To help with exile, we are also playing 4 copies of the Elite Spellbinder, more affectionately known as Paulo Vitor Domitorosa. This 3 mana, 3/1 flying human cleric enters the battlefield, and then you take a look at the opponent's hand. You may exile a non-land card from it, and for as long as that card remains exiled, its owner may play it, but that spell will cost them 2 more to cast. And rounding out the exile creatures, we have 4 copies of the Skyclave Apparition. When the Skyclave Apparition enters the battlefield, exile up to 1 target non-land, non-token permanent you don't control with mana value 4 or less. When the Apparition leaves the battlefield, the exiled card's owner creates an XX blue illusion creature token, where X is the mana value of the exiled card. That card is very effective, and in tandem with the Brutal Cathar, you can basically take anything off the board. The nice thing about the Apparition, it can target planeswalkers and enchantments and artifacts, whereas the Cathar can only target creatures, so they are a very complementary pair. Other cards that we're playing to disrupt the opponent's game plan: Redane God of the Worthy. We will end up utilizing this card in both forms, either as Reidane, a 3 mana 2/3 flying vigilance legendary creature where snowlands the opponent is playing enter the battlefield tapped, and non-creature spells that they cast with mana value 4 or greater cost 2 more. So just adding taxes. And then we will play it as the Valkmaris Shield as well if the opponent is playing low to the ground. If a source an opponent controls would deal damage to you, or a permanent you control prevent 1 of that damage. Whenever you or another permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, counter that spell or ability unless its controller plays 1. So that's a very effective little ward there that helps keep us safe from 1/1 creatures flooding against, shambling ghasts, cursebound witches, pests, and any number of things that will give us a marked advantage and help us survive through the nonsense. We are also running 4 copies of the Inquisitor Captain, so this is where we dip our toe into alchemy. Inquisitor Captain is a popular card in the cleric sets right now, as it can sneak in many clerics onto the battlefield and flood it out. This deck was designed to counteract the cleric meta by taking away their key pieces, but we will be using this to also cheat Skyclave Apparitions, Brutal Cathars, or other major players onto the battlefield and continue to build up. So this card is a 3/3 for 4. When the Inquisitor Captain enters the battlefield, if there are 20 or more creature cards with mana value 3 or less among cards in your graveyard, hand, and library, seek 2 of them and put 1 of them onto the battlefield and shuffle the other into the library. To give you an idea of what this deck is running, we are running 27 creatures, 2 artifacts, 7 enchantments, and 24 lands. So we have plenty for that to choose from. And that just reset the layout. That is a fun thing to keep in mind. Other artifacts, enchantments, and little pieces that will be running in this deck include Borrowed Time, 3 copies. It is an Exile enchantment that enters the battlefield and can target anything just about. Circle of Confinement, which is limited to creatures, I believe, with 3 or less mana value, which is good for certain deck types, including mono green, which sometimes will run low to the ground, very big creatures, and then build them up. 2 copies of the Paladin Class to help us against Izzet decks or decks that might be running spells on our turn to try and counter us with putting stuff onto the ground, or even try and eliminate it with targeted removal. And 2 copies of the Portable Hole to take away early cards that the opponent may play, whether that be Fearsome Whelps, Tenacious Pups, or other annoying cards that fall under that 2 mana range. For lands, we are running 24 lands, 4 copies of the Faceless Haven, 9 copies of 2 different versions of the Snow Plains because we have the dark art on both of them and thought it'd be fun, and 2 copies of Cave of the Frost Dragon. Just again, if the board gets wiped, doesn't hurt to have some things sitting on the side that can swing in. With that, we are excited to get started today, and we will see you in the gameplay. We have another opponent. I've actually already played this guy once today. He was playing dragons, so we know what he likes to come out with. In this case, we're going to have to let bygones be bygones. Haha, no pun intended. Leading with a black mana this time, and a Cursebound Witch. He's changed up his archetype. Interesting. And there's red mana. Maybe not as changed up as we thought. We just never saw the Cursebound Witch last time. Another Cursebound Witch coming down to the board. We'll go ahead and take the 1 damage. Not worth engaging in this moment for that. And we'll pass the turn. Let's see what's coming down next. Go ahead and let that through. Bloodtithe Harvester. Interesting play. Let's go ahead and take a peek at what's going on in their hand. Meathook Massacre and Orcus Prince of Undeath. We're going to go ahead and take the Orcus. Just put that a little further out of reach. Now a 6 mana play on their part, and we'll hold up. We'll see what they sacrifice for the Bloodtithe Harvester. Chances are they will target the Stonebinder. But I am not a mind reader, so we shall find out. They may just choose the Meathook and clean the board. If they do that, I will be playing the Redane God of the Worthy next turn as a shield. So it'll end up being the Valkmira Protector shield, just so we can keep the 1/1s at bay. Opponent swinging in. We're going to go ahead and take this damage and then put them just out of range. Let's see what they do here. Meathook Massacre for 1. There goes our flying. Oh, and the Inquisitor Captain is a juicy pickup. Let's go ahead and play the shield. And with that, we are now invulnerable at least to their initial attacks with the witches. We can let them through with zero fear. They have nothing in their graveyard as of yet. And the Inquisitor Captain can come down next turn and really spice things up. Opponent taking their time. We have a good setup here to keep us relatively safe from anything they could try. They don't have nearly enough mana for the Orcus. That Exile kept it just out of range. There's the 2 damage meat hook. Electing to clean the board, that's just what we want. We are hurting a little bit here, but with that, the Inquisitor Captain can come down and refill our side of the battlefield, and we can start really putting some pressure on them. Go ahead and play the Inquisitor Captain. And we'll play the Skyclave Apparition and take away their Meathook Massacre. Let's see what they elect to do. Probably going to have to go for direct damage against... There's a Curse of Leeches, but now they have to pay 1 to get it down on the field. And with another Skyclave Apparition, we're just going to take that right away from them. And we now begin the process of assaulting their side of the field. Let's go ahead and start burying the Cursebound Witches. Now 1 mana away from being able to cast the Orcus without any counter kicks. They are looking at that Valkyria. Don't know if they have any artifact removal. That would be a serious damper on our parade if they did. Bloodhunter Bat. And they have to again tap all the way down just to get the slightest of effects off. We're going to go ahead and take it. Brutal Cathar coming down, making our decision very easy here. And let's go ahead and take another Cursebound Witch away. Opponent now down to 10 health. They have to hope they have at least another land, but that land's going to play the Orcus naked. The Orcus won't be able to power up any additional damage, which means that we might be able to swing through for victory on this next turn. 1 blocker. That's not going to be enough. Circle of Confinement will clear the way, and we can swing in for victory on this next turn. Witch's Cauldron. They're going to gain a life and draw a card potentially here, but do they elect to go for it? They do not. Well, I'm not going to say revenge is sweet, but he beat me in the last game with a 4, potentially 5-color Dragons deck. Just absolutely rolled right over me. I'm going to enjoy this swing for victory, and we'll see what happens. And there's the draw. Let's go ahead and just have our fun. Elite Spellbinder coming down to take whatever they just drew away. Kalane the Reclusive Painter. You can sit this one out, and here we go. And the last Cursebound Witch is gone. Well, like I said at the start, no pun, or no yeah, pun intended. We're going to let bygones be bygones. He won the first game. We took the second game. So far, it's been a fun set of matches. Alright, we have a new opponent. The Emperor stepping up to the board. This is not a bad hand. It's got the land we're going to need to at least get the ball rolling. We'll go ahead and do a keep. Play the Faceless Haven on 1. And set up for Thalia on 2. Opponent wearing Chandra sleeves. Could be a mono red deck. Plenty of Exile when we get to the third phase between the Brutal Cathar and the Borrowed Time. Borrowed Time will be put slightly out of range though, based on our Thalia being on the board. Alright, opponent leads with green mana. We get our second Faceless Haven, which brings us that 4th mana we're going to need to be able to cast that Borrowed Time. Let's see where they go. Opponent showing red and green colors. Gruul. They are a werewolves deck, one of my favorite archetypes in the entire game currently. Let's interrupt them. It's the least we could do. Opponent gives us a good game. We'll go ahead and send it back. They might just not want to deal with this right now, but we'll see what they elect to do. Alright, incoming Inquisitor Captain. Oh, and a Redane God of the Worthy. Go ahead and put that down. Go ahead and give us the ability now to bring in any more of their snowlands tapped. There's this tap. Now do they pump? They elect to pump. So, incoming 3/3 Wolfie. We're going to go ahead and let it through. Going to play a Stonebinder's Familiar and take away the Ranger class. Opponent now down to 6, and the Brutal Cathar on the day flip takes the pup away. That is most likely it for them, folks. I don't know what moves they could make. There is a lot of ground for them to make up, and there is a lot of bodies in their way. Halana Elena Partners, that is a great pickup for them. We're going to go ahead and play down the Paladin class, give everything just a gentle nudge, and swing in for the victory. Hit him with the premature GG. Opponent just letting it through. Sometimes it just spirals, and that is just one example. This deck does have the ability to be very punishing, especially with all the exile effects. It really limits the opponent's ability to lay their game plan out on the board. And we have our next opponent coming to the board. This is a little slow. We're going to go ahead and mulligan. We've now got a 1 and 2 drop. We're going to go ahead and bury the Borrowed Time, as we'll put it out of our own range once the Thalia hits the floor, if the Thalia does survive. Stonebinder's Familiar, putting the opponent on notice. Oh, this could be the dream match. If the opponent's playing anything, is it? It's going to have a hard time with casting now that the Thalia is on the board. Alright. We're going to go ahead and hold on to our Skyclave Apparitions. No targets for them, so no need to waste them at this time. Opponent showing 2 mana. Let's see if they choose to spell. Magma Opus, looking to create a treasure token. Well, if you got a ramp, you got a ramp. Opponent now at 4 mana. Prismari Campus, Conductive Current. Okay. Opponent getting rid of everything to do that. We'll hold. Looks like this is probably a burn-based deck, but with no targets, it still doesn't make a lot of sense to put the Skyclave down on the board. Now, it's starting to make sense. We'll go ahead and take that Geist Chandler. Every bit of exile will help here. There is another one, so whatever they've got in hand is going to be super cheap to cast. Let's go ahead and get that body out of the way as well. Opponent now being taxed by the Paladin class as well, so if they have simple Fading Hopes, it's not going to move. See if they try and do another board wipe here. Opponent trying to make some decisions. Magma Opus. Wow. Well, that makes a lot of sense. We're going to go ahead and take their big one. And we'll power up the Paladin Class. Now Faceless Haven coming downhill on them will be a threat. Never quite noticed this, hadn't given it enough attention, but it looks like the Magma Opus is an elephant. There is another land for the opponent, and another Geist Chandler. And there's the swing. Now we need anything but a land. And, of course, the game did not oblige. Gonna go ahead and pump that Paladin Class to the max. Opponent swinging in for 5 damage. It's now our turn. They've got a priority hold. Ooh, another Skyclave Apparition. Let's see if they elect a counter. Go ahead and take that Geist Chandler if we don't say so ourselves. And we'll swing in for 6 with the... Sorry, 8 with the Faceless Haven, pending bounce or removal. There's the Fading Hope. And the Faceless Haven back on the board. I've got a feeling this is not going to be a pleasant turn for us. Well, that is a good pickup with the Spellbinder. Again, pending any kind of removal or counter spells, we are now going to get a good look at what's in their hand. Looks like they're going to use the Magma Opus again. There it is. And that is a scary set of pieces. We're going to go ahead and take away the Lier. Don't need them replaying everything from their graveyard. And there it is, the Lier with a full tap down. That's 10 damage coming in. We have to hope for a decent pump effect. That is an expensive Lier. We're going to go ahead and put the double strike on the Elite Spellbinder. And the opponent's going to take it away. Go ahead and give him the good game. Alright, we have another game, and this is a good keep. We're going to go ahead and hold on to that. Play out that Frost Dragon Cave on 1. Hold up the Sungold Sentinel for 2. And then start taking anything that they think is a good idea to play to the board. May even play the Reidane on 3 just to slow down their mana. There's the Snow-Covered Forest. There's a Ranger class. Oh, this is going to get nasty quick. We're going to play the Brutal Cathar and take away their token. Swinging in for 3. The opponent is going to have to come up with something fast. That Brutal Cathar does not have anything to return them, as it was holding a token. Tokens do not get put underneath it and cannot be returned to the battlefield once they've been taken. Outland Liberator. Thank goodness I don't have any enchantments for them to take. Let's see if they Blizzard Brawl. There's the Blizzard Brawl. Don't want to risk me taking it away. We're going to take it away anyway, folks. And we'll go ahead and get rid of their Blizzard Brawl. This is Exile Tribal, after all. Field of Ruin, Old Growth Troll. We will go ahead and take away the Old Growth Troll. Path is clear. And the opponent is now down to 9. 4 mana available for them. Whatever they play next, we will take. I can guarantee one thing, this is not a pleasant game for them. They are probably, whatever device they are playing on, whether it be a computer or mobile phone, shaking with rage and frustration. Go ahead and bring on the Tree Folk. And I will bring on the Cathar. We're going to go ahead and just ignore the Wrenn in 7. Doesn't make any sense to do damage to it at this point with a path so clear to the opponent's face. Opponent with 2 Faceless Havens on the board, they can put a chump blocker up in front of us on this next turn. But, once again, it's just not going to mean much. Opponent plussing. Picking up some more land, but I don't think they can play a land this turn as that Faceless Haven is still showing the Summoning Sickness. Looks like they may elect to use the Field of Ruin and reset their mana. Get a green mana back on the board untapped, maybe play a Blizzard Brawl here. Nope, they don't have the Blizzard Brawl. We're going to go ahead and hit them with the GG. And swing in for the win. Go ahead and dump that Ulvenwald oddity while we're at it. And that is game. Mono green in the bin. We have our next opponent. And this is a great hand to keep on 1, especially since we are on the play. We'll go ahead and lead with the Stonebinder's Familiar, Thalia on 2 to disrupt any spell casting they may be up to, and then the Spellbinder and Apparition are going to be our 3 mana options depending on how their playline goes. Go ahead and play the Thalia, swing in for 1. Opponent showing Boros colors. Let's go ahead and take a quick peek at what's going on behind the curtain. That is terrifying. They don't have the mana for it, but that is none of that is what we want to see. Let's go ahead and take that Cathar away from them, as they are a ways away from being able to cast the spells. Doesn't make sense to take any of those away at the moment. Skyclave Apparition on hold to really kind of turn the tables on them here. They picked up the land draw, and there's the Brutal Cathar. Who does it target? Oh, that is going to be a nice pickup for us. Little do they know, we are sitting on a Skyclave Apparition, which allows us to not only take the Brutal Cathar, there they go. I think they realized where the mistake was, and with that victory, we have moved on from gold to platinum. I've said in previous videos, in attempts to climb the ladder, I looked at the prize available in Platinum and said, yeah, I'm cool to chill here. I am excited to be here now with the intention to plow on through. And with that, folks, we'll see you in the post-game wrap. And we're back with the post-game wrap. So excited to have made it into Platinum. It's as far as I've ever gone in the campaign. In the ranked play, never really decided to go past that. Always took a look at the rewards pool that was available there and decided that that's cool enough with me. I'm excited that with this little YouTube journey that we're on and the desire to make this count for something, we're going to try and make that push to Mythic, which is really going to test the edges of my skill and see if we have what it takes to get there. Deck performed pretty well. Went 4-4. When I initially created the deck, I had different pieces kind of rolling about, hadn't really figured out the land situation, and wanted to work in the Paladin class and kind of tweak things a little bit. So my version 1, I played 1 game testing and ended up 100%. Played it on a different device, so I don't have the footage for it. But this particular deck ended up going 4-4 overall, 2 early losses, and then just kind of went back and forth with a couple of different players and games, and it was just it was a fun series of matches. The losses were a little bit heartbreaking and frustrating in their own ways. The wins happened very quickly. This deck does spiral out of control, and can really just demoralize an opponent to the point of just causing them to scoop. Definitely something that I think could be a good climbing deck on the ladder. Time will tell with that. I will probably bring this back at some point, or at least play it off camera if we're trying to make a push into a different level and give ourselves something close to work up to. But it was a fun ride, and I'm excited to see what this deck can do for us in the future. So, with that, I look forward to seeing you guys and gals in the next one, and this is Furion from the Florida Men Gaming, signing off.